Hi, welcome to the 48th session of Physics 9. I am Sir CJ, and in this session, we are going to be targeting the following parts. They're all under gather information. Medyo, marami tayong mga ginagawa talaga under this component of the 7E-based self-learning module. These parts are all found on pages 10 to 11 ng book 24 of the Unit 4. Now, the first activity is a discussion about the different sources of power. And medyo meron tayong mga local examples actually that might guide you in understanding the sources of power that we have in our locality here in Pampanga and in the Philippines as a whole. And then yun naman pangalawa is checkpoint naman about the same topic, sources of power. I'm hoping that for this checkpoint, you are going to perform really well kasi kaka-discuss lang natin siya dito. I'm hoping that by the next activity, a checkpoint, naka-retain pa rin. O kaya nagets nyo talaga kung ano ba talaga yung didiscuss natin dun sa first part. And then the last part naman is another discussion about the main types of power plants. This session, entire session, session 48, is still helping you to be good at the following learning competencies. The first one is that you should be capable of explaining how heat transfer and energy transformation make heat engines like geothermal power plants work. Although meron tayong mga ibang mga uri ng power plants na dinidescribe or dinidiscuss dito every single time, I am hoping naman that yung main na learning competency natin which is about geothermal power plants is well discussed naman with you. And then the next learning competency is that you should be capable of explaining how electrical energy is generated, transmitted, and distributed. And so let's begin. For the first part, there are different types of power plants that are existing and in operation around the globe, and in the Philippines, actually, you also have those different kinds of power plants. I would like to emphasize on this, hindi lang naman siya isang uri ng power plant actually. We have several types of power plants, different methods of harnessing electrical energy. And as a result, we have different power plants in strategic locations in our own territories. May mga countries actually na maybe isang power plant na talaga ang ginagamit nila because of the relative size of the country. Pero most countries don't actually rely on only one kind of source. They actually rely on around two or three or many more sources. Energy resources, though, as you may already learned have already learned in Araling Panlipunan's economics, are categorized into two. They are either renewable or non-renewable. The more common type of source is actually non-renewable because even though yun nga, marami siyang waste, marami siyang parang environment effects, at yun nga, one time lang siyang pwedeng gamitin because yun nga, it's non-renewable, it's actually very efficient to use these sources. Kumbaga, we don't really require so much money to produce so much energy. Ganun siya. Ang coal at ang nuclear sources natin, which are both non-renewable, are the most common non-renewable sources actually around the globe and even in the Philippines. A distinct characteristic kasi of these two is that once they are burned up, they're really gonna generate so much thermal energy. Yun nga lang, you cannot retrieve the materials anymore. You cannot like recycle it or reuse any of it. We can only retrieve coal anyway by waiting for actually millions and millions of years, which is not actually feasible, if any. It's not actually possible to do that. Ang coal, it has to, kumbaga, undergo a very, very long process. At ang talagang key factor doon is hindi yung mismong parang mga addition, subtraction, multiplication of molecules whatsoever. Ang pinaka key factor talaga sa pagiging coal ng coal is yung time that it takes for it to be produced. Again, the key factor here is the time it takes for coal to be produced for it to turn into coal. So yun nga, the only way for us to have more of it or to produce more of it is by kumbaga waiting lang talaga. We're gonna be waiting lang talaga. In our reserves, it's not exactly enough na for our energy needs these days. Um, in the Philippines, what our efforts are when it comes to addressing that kind of concern, yung paubos na yung coal, is by building several renewable resources such as hydroelectric power plants, wind farms, as well as geothermal power plants. Because these actually they don't run out. Yung mga water na nag-fill ng mga dams para sa mga hydroelectric power plants, they actually get replenished, refilled through rain or precipitation. The blowing wind continuously powers up wind farms, although yun nga hindi siya gaanong reliable kasi may mga times na hindi naman gaanong mahangin, but still they generate a lot of electricity kasi they were strategically put naman in places na mas madalas maghangin-hangin. Ayun. And since the thermal energy naman ng ating planet is always available for geothermal energy farms, yun, we can always rely on that one. Now, this system of relying on renewable resources is actually a more sustainable method of harnessing energy because it gives us guaranteed source. Kumbaga, our source just, kumbaga, it doesn't really run out. Now, in one of my seminars recently, I learned that a particular, say, electric cooperative can actually rely on two sources. Kumbaga, hindi naman yung actually naisip ko before, halimbawa, Pelco 1 is only going to rely on one kind of energy source, say coal. Hindi naman pala siya ganun. Ang Pelco 2, I learned that it actually is using around 65% non-renewable and 35% of it is actually renewable source. So in that way, it's a bit greener compared to its sister Pelco 1. Ganun siya. You can also, I think, research for the percentages ng renewable at non-renewable sources ng electricity ninyo through, strenuous kind of, or I mean, a meticulous research. Maybe if you're living in Angeles, you can search for AEC. Pero I heard that AEC yata is 100% coal. Yeah. And then sa Falapco naman, you can also search for it if you want to, so that you know kung saan nanggagaling yung electricity ninyo, and maybe you can be parang you can promote a better sense of responsibility among people in your community when it comes to electrical energy consumption. Now let's check what you guys learned through this checkpoint. I think for this checkpoint, I'm gonna be asking you to get a 1/4 sheet of paper, and then please get a writing pen, and then let's begin. Now, before you continue, yun nga, let's check for your knowledge. The first one, you have to complete it with words or group of words. In the Philippines, the Bangi wind farm is a form of blank energy source. Okay, so pause this video if you need more time. Are you done? Okay, let's proceed now with the second item. A blank power plant in Kidapawan uses the heat of the Earth's surface in the production of electrical energy. Pause this video if you need more time. Are you done? Let us proceed now to the third item. Number 3, blank is burnt to produce electrical energy. Once it is burnt out, it can no longer be retrieved. Pause this video if you need more time. Okay, we're gonna be showing all of the answers all at once, so I hope that you're ready. Okay, For number one, the correct answer is wind. So in the Philippines, the Bangi wind farm is a form of wind energy source. The second item naman, a geothermal power plant in Kidapawan uses the heat of the Earth's surface in the production of electrical energy. So the correct answer for this is actually geothermal. And then the last item, the correct answer naman is coal, wherein coal is burnt to produce electrical energy. Once it is burnt out, it can no longer be retrieved, and thus we need to wait for more supplies of coal. So, how many of these three items did you get correctly? I hope that you got all of them correctly. I hope so. Write your score on the upper right hand corner of your paper. Very good. Now let us proceed to the last part of this session, which is discussion about the main types of power plants. Now that I know that we are already kumbaga kind of like informed about the five sources of energy: coal, nuclear, hydroelectric, wind, and geothermal energy. I hope that we can now proceed towards kumbaga talking something more about these power plants. There's a specific type of power plant for a specific type of resource, and a specific type of power plant means that it has a specific type of mechanism on how it produces electricity. Even though may mga similarities sa mga power plants, they still have this specific kind of process na only special actually for that particular power plant. Kumbaga, you can find this process in the wind farm, pero you cannot find it in a geothermal power plant. Or maybe a geothermal power plant has something in its processes in generating electricity that can't actually be found in a wind farm. However, we can actually sum all of their processes up by following this diagram, because in terms of electrical energy generation, they actually have a lot of things in common. So the first step is always the production of a source or of energy to rotate the turbine. So, say for instance, in a wind farm, the wind, I mean yung mismong blades nung mismong windmill is actually going to rotate. Is going to be actually the source, okay, of the mechanical energy para mag-rotate ng turbine. Sa mga hydroelectric power plants naman, it's quite similar, because yung flow naman ng tubig is going to be the source of the energy to rotate the turbine. Now, in a geothermal power plant, in a nuclear power plant, in a coal power plant, ang ginagawa ng mga yon is they heat up water. Okay, tapos yung water magpaproduce siya ng steam, and steam has the ability to move, and that steam is going to be the producer of the source of energy para mag-rotate yung turbine. Then second step, of course, obviously, is yung mismong pagro-rotate ng blades ng turbine. So all of those different power plants are actually all actually have this process, this step in common. And then this step as well. So they all have turbines, and they all have a turbine that will activate the generator. And then their generators are all capable of producing electricity. So this diagram, in terms of generation, is what these power plants, even though they have different resources, have in common. Now, a kinetic power plant, such as yung na-mention natin kanina, yung hydroelectric and wind power plant, they use the blowing of the wind or the flow of the water to physically turn a turbine that will activate the generation to produce electricity. Kaya siya tinawag na kinetic, kasi yung mismong paggalaw ng turbine ang parang kumbaga unang nangyayari. Kumbaga there is an actual parang manual movement na diretsyong nagko-connect dun sa source, dun sa mismong step. Kumbaga, if the source is wind, the wind itself is going to turn the turbine. Okay? Pero pag sinabi natin geothermal kasi, hindi naman yung init mismo ng earth ang magpapaikot sa turbine eh. It's actually the steam na kukulo dahil doon sa init ng mundo. Okay, I hope that parang kumbaga there is this degree of indirectness when it comes to the thermal power plants, because thermal power plants on the other hand, such as geothermal and a nuclear power plant and coal power plants, they boil water until it becomes steam, at itong superheated na steam na to has high pressure, and this will eventually be turning the turbine. Kumbaga, kinetic power plants, they directly turn the turbines, whereas thermal power plants, they indirectly turn the turbines, and they all, most of all actually, they all use steam to, to affect their cause. Now, that we are through, I hope that what stayed with you, it's the fact that we have different power plants, types of power plants, but they all have something in common. Okay, and they have a lot of things in common when it comes to generation, as discussed in the last part of this video lesson. Okay, now let us, kumbaga, stretch our relax our shoulders a bit. Okay? Because medyo meron pa tayong mga konti pang mga sessions left. But I'm hoping that you are feeling kind of like informed already about the topics that we have at hand. This is Sir CJ, and in this session we had the following parts. All of them are coming from gather information. We did the discussion first about the different sources of power, and then we did a checkpoint with 3 items, which I still hope na nakuha nyo lahat ng 3 items. And then the last part, which is a discussion about the main types of power plants. Now, the learning competencies that we are working for through this session are the following. So you should be capable of explaining how heat transfer and energy transformation make heat engines like geothermal power plants work. And then the second and last learning competency for this session, even actually for this book, and even actually for this year, is for you to be capable of explaining how electrical energy is generated, transmitted, and distributed. You will find these parts of the session specifically in pages number 10 to 11 of the 24th book of the 4th unit of the 7E based self-learning module in Science 9, which I wrote. This is RCJ, and I hope that you're having a good day so far.